We are so excited about this God-given story. All right. So welcome, Orlando and Brittany Thomas. So the first question we have for you is, who are you? Who are you?
I'll give away to my wife, please.
Collectively or separate?
Let's do it separately. Yeah, and then collectively if you want to.
Okay, cool. So I'm Brittany. I'm originally from California, born and raised in Compton slash Long Beach. I come from a long family in the Church of Christ. Born and raised in Southside Church of Christ, actually, with Brother Backus, who was my first minister. I'm 35, almost 36, which is a little crazy. I have 3 children with this guy. I don't know. What else you want to know? I have a lot of facets to myself. I have a lot of interest. I'm like a Jamaican. I got jobs on jobs on jobs. And I say that with love because I'm really hoping I do have Jamaican in me. I love life. Just being a first lady is very interesting. I prefer to be called lady instead of first lady. Yeah, I have so much to tell you, but I don't want to keep running on.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, Brother Thomas.
Amen. Look, my name is Orlando Thomas. I'm originally from Durham, North Carolina. I was raised in Durham, of course. I was born in Wilson, North Carolina, just outside I just want to say, just outside the county line. I always wanted to say that, but anyway, yeah. And so I'm from here. I grew up here at Southside, sort of, kinda. I came to Southside when I was 17, and as a result of the ministry of Chris Turner and then of course Brother Stevens, and that's me in a nutshell. I'm a preacher. I love the Word of God, and I love all that stuff about God and theology and the Bible, and y'all know that stuff.
He's a Bible nerd.
Yeah, and I'm a what do you call it? A professional student.
Professional
I'm a
student.
professional
I
student.
call him professional student.
And
He'll
so,
always be in school.
Yeah, not right now though. Lord have mercy. But yeah. So that's just kind of in a nutshell. Think who I am.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, cool. I'm a daddy of 2, of course. She's already told her that.
Awesome. Well, Greg, it's so wonderful to have you here. I'm going to let you jump in on this interview, Greg, if you'd like to.
Okay, cool. Now I'm unmuted, but thank you for that, Kimberly. And I guess my question is, and I know I already know this version of the story. The story has many different facets of versions, but if you can share with the audience, man, how did y'all 2 meet? And let's let O talk first, and then let's let O talk first and give his version, and then let Brittany get the version and see if hopefully we can find somewhere in the middle.
Well, I first have to say, I always let him tell it anyways, because he tells it better. I will say that. However, I do have to put my little 2 cents in there because, no, not even 2 cents, it's more than that, but you know what I mean? My little thoughts in there, because some things you got to tweak a little bit because he don't know all of the things surrounding it. He thinks he does, but no.
I do. Yeah.
But go ahead, I love him.
Let's go. All right, so I moved to Los Angeles in 2006, and just finished Southwestern Christian. I moved to Los Angeles, and I was working. Calm down, it's coming. That's coming.
Okay, sorry.
I moved to South. I forgot where I was going now.
Sorry,
I moved to Los Angeles.
South Africa.
I'm about to say, I moved to Los Angeles, and I was there for probably about within the year when I got there. And yes, when I got to Los Angeles, I moved out there to go to school. but I was also dating a young lady who was running track for UCLA. And we went together to Los Angeles instead of going where all Southwestern people go when they leave Southwestern. They usually go to Oklahoma or Abilene. And I was like, nah, that ain't in the cards for me. And so I was like, we're going to LA, got to LA, and I was there probably working with a church, Alondra, for about 6 months or something like that. And I got invited to come to Southside to preach. And when I went over to Southside, one of the things about being a young guy in Los Angeles in the church space is that when you go to different churches to preach, especially even though I was dating somebody, I wasn't married. And so you could kind of tell that there was like this energy, like everybody's like, yo, who is this young guy, you know? And not everybody, I guess, but you know, I don't want you to think I'm trying to blow my head up. No, it just was, it was cool. But you could tell, right? And so the crazy thing is I met Brittany during this time when I was at Southside preaching. And I was, of course, in the relationship I was in, I was quite proud to be there and then dating this girl at UCLA. I thought it was a huge thing. So that would always be mentioned like in my introduction, right? Or somewhere along the way, right? Because we was like a couple, really. And no, I wasn't shacking. I was living somewhere separately. She was living somewhere separately. Anyhow, and so what wound up happening was I met Brittany that day, like during that time of preaching at Dr. Backus's church. And I really preached too long, so I got in trouble. Didn't get invited back for a long time. And but when I was in the foyer, normally everybody knows when you go in the foyer that people, it's just common.
Customary. It's
customary that people will come and shake your hand like, hey, preacher, you did a great job, you know? And that Sunday, I knew I saw Brittany and I saw her friend Ashley. Y'all remember Ashley? And they literally saw me standing there at the door and they didn't come and say, hey, they didn't speak. Like they just walked out the door, you know? But I knew she saw me because we caught eyes, you know? And, but she didn't come speak. And so at that moment, I knew something in my mind, like, yo, there's something up with that. Like, why did she come speak to me, you know? Fast forward maybe about 6 more months, 6 more months. And what wound up happening was I went to the youth conference in California and they asked me to teach the college class. So now I'm teaching the college class in the same year, Southwestern. So first of all, let me tell you this, I was really a misfit in Los Angeles because I was this new guy and I didn't know anybody like that. And so I knew Alondra, but that was a smaller community. And when I would go places, I just felt awkward because I didn't know anybody. Everybody knew everybody. But when I went to the youth conference, they asked me to teach the college class that year. Southwestern wound up sending a group up to the conference that year of guys that I had just gone to school with. And so I knew them. And so I got up there around a lot of my Southwestern friends and I was teaching in this class. And when I tell y'all, listen, I think I do all right with teaching, but I think in this moment, I probably had one of the best teaching classes I had ever done in my life. Maybe it wasn't, but it seemed like it was. We was in this little small room in the back of this auditorium, and you had about 40 college students in this little room. It really was a fire code violation. And we was like sitting on top of each other. Folk was sitting on the floor. And it was like no space in there. I was standing in the center of the room and it was so tight and packed in there that I literally was just spinning in circles the whole time, teaching and talking. But my friends were there from Southwestern, so I was really comfortable. And then Brittany was in the class. And then after the first portion of the class, we went to lunch. Here it is. And I come back from lunch and on the way back to class, she sees me walking and she stops me. She says, how old are you? And when she says how old you were, I was like, oh, I told her my age. And then I walked away from that situation because she was kind of cute, And I walked away from that situation. I was like, she likes me. And, to my surprise, I found out maybe when we actually started dating, I think I found out, was it then?
We were married. Okay.
You're talking about with Nigel.
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Is that what you
No. I was
about
talking
to
about Ashley. Oh, you told Nigel that?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. We try to get the story straight. Anyway, the point of the matter is, I found out that she told one of her friends, and she was like, "Hey, I think I like my teacher." And it sounds pretty bad, right? But she in college, and I'm like just out of college, and so it really wasn't that bad of an idea. And I knew right then. I told her, I said, "You like me," and from that day forward, I just knew that it was about to be it.
Is
I'm
that
sorry.
what you said? You
I'm
just
really
said
I'm
you
really
like me, and then it just.
like I knew when I walked away from that situation, I knew that she had interest. Like you could tell, like, cause she didn't just ask how old I was. She had like this like this sparkle in her eye. You know how it was just like, like how old are you? Like it was really, I'm serious, y'all. I promise you, I can't make this up. Like I saw her and she was looking at me, she was like, "How old are you?" And she was looking at me, waiting for an answer.
A lot.
It was, I'm serious, y'all. I'm serious. I'm serious. Like she's gonna tell you something else, but I promise you, that's what happened. Go ahead, man. Can you?
No, you can keep going though. You can go until we,
He just asked how we met, right? You
Oh,
asked
yes.
how we met, right?
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so only thing that I would, I guess, add on to that, when he came, when he came to Southside, I did, of course, notice him, but I also knew that I wasn't the only one noticing him. Like, because we know women, he's a preacher, and so of course, I just, especially at that time, very prideful. So I wasn't going to just walk up to him and talk to him like everybody else. I didn't want to be a part of that bunch. No disrespect to them. Everyone has their own thing they're comfortable with, but I didn't want to be that person. And so I knew I would see him at some point somewhere else. California, we do a lot of mingling and a lot of just events together. So I knew he would come up again. But also, he mentioned he had a girlfriend in the sermon. So that was like a red flag for me. And then I knew that he saw me, but I didn't want to seem thirsty. So I took the side door out because that was my home congregation. So I knew where else to go. And so I did that. And then the next time I saw him was probably the conference.
Yeah. And I still had a girlfriend at the conference.
Anyways, yes, he did, but I still wanted to know more because I had this thing in my head. Now, I did like him, guys. Okay, I will not deny that. I did like him, right? But the reason why I really asked how old he was, because everyone knows that Orlando is a young guy, and especially then, but he sounds old. So I was confused. I was confused. I was like, okay, I know he's a younger guy, but how close is he really to our age? And not to mention, like, he knew a lot about the word, like more than the average guy his age, right? I know he went to Southwestern, so that was a thing too to consider. But I'm thinking, okay, he's probably gonna say like 29, 30. Not that he looks 30, but he sounds just older than me. And I was 21, maybe something like 21 or 22. I was one of the older college students because I started late. And so when I walked up to him, he was with some people, so I felt comfortable. I didn't feel like, okay, I look like this thirsty girl walking up to this dude, but it was like other people around. So I just kind of joined the conversation. Then I asked him how old he was. So when he said he was 24, I was blown away, but I was kind of like, yes, he is closer to my age. And then after that, that's when I did tell my best friend, I think I like my teacher. But then there's this other part of the story that someone else brought up that I do not remember about me being excited and then bringing them to, like, showing him to people. Like, that doesn't sound like me, so I don't remember any of that.
It happened.
Anyways, that was quite a while ago, but it could have happened. But yeah, there's definitely more to the story, especially leading up to us actually dating, but we'll wait for those other questions.
No, that we're coming right there, and I'm gonna ask my question. I'm gonna get out the way for Miss Hardy, and I'm gonna put two questions in one. How did it go from this curiosity, still had this girlfriend and things of that nature, into y'all actually connecting? And then the next question I have with that is, did y'all have like a spiritual gap, being that he was a man of God? I mean, you were a woman of God as well, but preacher, knew a lot of the word. And I don't know where you were at spiritually at the time. So how was y'all spiritual level in this? Because I don't know what y'all talk about when you sprinkle calls, but I would imagine equally yokeness and finding somebody that has a certain, and then you're dating a preacher. So kind of walk us through, were you intimidated by that, and how over the years have y'all been able to kind of level it out? What does that look like? Because everybody says equally yoked, but I'm like, is that, how does that play out in y'all relationship? So y'all can tackle the questions how y'all would like.
Okay, you go first.
So one of the things that I realized when I got to Los Angeles was the fact that I had always been in a relationship since I had gotten out of high school. Even that in high school I dated, and then when I got to college, I was on campus maybe for a week, and I was like talking to a girl, you know, and I don't know if that speaks to like just my own level of insecurity of needing to be with somebody, and that's what I felt like I went through, right? And then when I got out to Los Angeles, even though I was, you know, I was dating a young lady, and we had been together at that point for almost 4 to 5 years, 5 years, and but we were going through challenges because she was running track and she was busy, and it was a lot. You know, I remember walking on campus, and my girlfriend's going out or going to hang out with like Kevin Love and Russell Westbrook and those guys. And I was kind of intimidated, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, I think it kind of created this space or this gap between us for a little bit. And then I was like, why am I tripping? I'm in Los Angeles. I brought sand to the beach type of thing, you know. I'm sorry, y'all, but that's literally how what my thinking was. And so literally, you know, we had a conversation during that time. I think I had been there maybe about 2 years. And it was at that point, or 3 years. And then it was at that point, I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of try the single piece. I think I'm gonna just try to be single for a minute. And so I did. Like, this is the first time I you know, we broke up. And then I think I went in LA for 1 whole year, and I didn't date exclusively. I went on dates with young ladies, and it was really a discovery. It was a period of discovery for me where I learned a lot about myself and about the women that I was interested in and things of the sort. And I think what happened was, and many people know, especially when you get out of that dating space, I didn't have an issue dating women, but what I wanted to make sure I didn't do was just jump back into dating somebody just for the sake of being with somebody. I want to make sure that I had the opportunity to really take my time. But the interesting thing during that period, man, LA was like, you have all these people out here, and then I couldn't find anybody that I felt like that I was really vibing with. And so I went through a period, not only was I single at this moment, but then I just was having so much, it was just so much failure that I went through probably about 6 months where I didn't have a solid relationship at all with anybody, not even to talk on the phone. And what wound up happening for us was, I remembered Brittany from the time when I first met her. I remembered her when she asked me, you know, how old I was at the conference. And it was at this moment where I was like in this place where I was like, man, I can't find anybody that I feel compatible with or at least interested in. And so I was like, yo, I think I'm gonna try to holler at her, you know, and and that's what happened. Single-rama happened. It used to happen every year. Chris Turner used to come out there every year. And I went to Single-rama with him, and we were there, and I wound up seeing her. And it was at that moment where I was like, okay, this might be ideal, right? But now I'm trying to get primed. You're like, okay, I think I'm gonna try to talk to her. And then she hanging out with some of my buddies from Texas that sung in groups, you know, I ain't gonna say no names, you know, just guys. And she was hanging out with one dude that I knew mutually. We had mutual friends. And when I saw her with him, I was like, oh, it's too late. It ain't gonna happen, you know, like she's probably talking now. And that's how it looked, of course. And then what wound up happening was I wound up talking to a mutual friend we had in Los Angeles, who I went to Southwestern with. And I told him that I was interested. No, how did that happen? I think her name came up, but then he said to me, he said, man, I have somebody that would be ideal for you. Or he might have said that to her. But I talked to him about her, and ultimately that's kind of what connected us. This mutual friend that we had who knew both of us very well, right? And then he says, man, I think y'all would be ideal for each other, like perfect. And literally, he kind of really connected us, you know? And when that happened, because I'll tell you the truth, and the crazy thing is, now she's trying to, like, she put me through something too, because when we finally came together, or at least this mutual friend basically put this ideal or this notion in our head, I didn't know if she knew, but I knew that he was going to talk to her at some point. So I decided, you know, I'm waiting now, and she's not, you know, getting back with me. My friend's not getting back with me. So I go on Facebook, MySpace. I went on my Facebook, and I sent her a message in her inbox. And I was like, hey, just small talk. Hey, you know, it was good to see you this weekend, whatever, you know, how are you doing, all this stuff. I sent her that message, and she didn't respond for 3 days.
Oh, the 3 day? Oh, she was playing
3
the
days.
games. I see. Yeah.
How it was long. That's how I know it was. It was long.
I would have
And so
removed
now-
as a friend by then.
Right. And so now I'm really thinking to myself, oh, it ain't gonna happen. Like, yeah, you know, she probably talking to my dude, and she just made me wait. And I waited and waited, and finally she responded. Like, it was late at night when I saw the message. And so, you know me, when I saw it, I was giddy. So I was like, oh shoot, let me respond back, thinking she was online right then. And I responded back, and she took another couple days. Like, she didn't respond back. So she had me waiting, it was probably pretty genius, to be quite honest, because now I'm really hooked. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, waiting for her response. And I think that's kind of how we kind of really got going at that moment.
Should I add on to that or leave it the way it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all correct. My side of it was, I was kind of talking to someone, you know, it wasn't exclusive, but it was like, you know how you're talking to someone kind of steadily, but it's not exclusive, if that makes sense. And it was long distance too, so it wasn't like it was super serious. But it was a mutual person that we knew. And so at that time too, I had just gotten out of like a very toxic relationship. I was with somebody for like 2.5 years, and it wasn't great. So I decided that I was going to spend a lot of time just, you know, not dating exclusively, kind of like he did. I did that for 2 years. And so when it was brought to me that, you know, I should talk to O or consider O, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, I wasn't thinking about it seriously or anything, but I knew that I did have, you know, interest in him before. So it was a no brainer. Like, oh yeah, if you want to hit me up, that's cool. But I was really at a time in my life where I was feeling good. Like, I was young, I was in college. I was just like going through life, whatever. I had just cut my hair. And so, you know, so it was like a whole new change. I lost a little bit of weight. So I was feeling good about myself. So, so when our friend was like, oh, you know, oh, you really should talk to O. And so I didn't know him as O then. I just knew him as Orlander. And the only other O that I know in the kingdom, at least, is Orpheus. And I knew he was married at the time. So I was like, oh, and I was like, Orlander? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah. So in my head, I'm like, duh, I've been knew that. But, but I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty, yeah, I'm down for that. And so when he did hit me up and I saw the message, I was happy. But of course, I just kept looking at it like I'll wait a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And so finally, when I did hit him up, that, like he said, you already know that part. I did make him wait a little bit longer after that first initiation. And so yeah, when we finally talked, he asked if he could call me, and I still have those messages, guys, on Facebook. Every now and then I go back and just read it, just, you know, try to relive what I was thinking at that time. But yeah, he asked me if he can call me. We talked and literally have not stopped talking since then.
We talked.
I mean, when I
On the
say we,
phone.
no.
Yo.
When I say we talked, guys, it was a little bit like crazy. Like we talked.
We talked. And here's the thing, I was going through some stuff in Cali because, first of all, my job, I was working a couple jobs, and Cali is expensive. So I was living in a room house with a member of the church. And I think I was going through, man, I might have lost my cell phone. Like I couldn't pay the phone bill. I had to get a Boost Mobile, you know what I'm saying? Or no, Metro PCS. That's what I got first. And then I wound up going to Boost and stepped the game up, And then what wound up happening was I didn't pay the bill. So I didn't have a phone to talk on. So I was staying at the house with brother and sister Marilyn and Clint Williams and Normandy Church of Christ. And literally I would sit out in their little coffee, whatever room, day room. And we would just sit on the phone all night. Of course, I would have rather to be in my bed, but I'm out there whispering the whole night. Yeah. And we talked and talked. And I think we went on our first date.
On my birthday.
On her birthday, yeah. Which was,
birthday.
It was all quick. Like it might've been within 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks of each other. And let me be honest, I didn't know whether she was the one, G, in the community, because we went on our first date and it was a great date. I show up, first of all, I drive to Compton, 122nd, in Compton, in the hood, like Piru on the other side, and I get out and I feel like I'm in Friday, the movie, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm walking up to the gated door and I gotta ring the doorbell and she come out and this dude is coming out with her. She coming out the house and a guy her age is coming out with her and he come over because he just wanted to meet me. But I'm like, what's up with that?
Looking back on that,
it was so weird.
I can see what that looks like. But at the time, guys, when I tell you, like, when I was younger, I was really, like, naive. And I was really just, like, I thought well of everyone. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But this guy was actually my friend. Like, he really was a friend that I was with all the time because we were in school together. We were in school together. But he really was, like, my friend. So it wasn't actually weird to me that he was there because it wasn't like, oh, this is a dude that I like that's here with me and my date is coming up. It was just like, it was my friend that was over, who's always over. But I can see what that looks like now, for sure.
Hey, I ain't know, y'all. I walked up like...
And he was quite attractive, so I can see what it looks like.
I'm tripping like what's up, And then...
But he talked to him, like I wasn't done getting ready. So he went in the room and he was talking to him and he could, you knew it, Philip was nice.
Philip was nice, but I was really like, cool I was just sitting there the whole time like, what is this? Like she said, not her brother, her friend. We sitting in the living room talking like he trying to sign me up. Like, bro, who you? You know what I'm saying?
Like he can dad or something. And
I think what wound up happening, y'all listen, I'm talking about this first date was crazy. So, I mean, it was a great date, so I got her, we picked her up. She comes out in these jeans, Lord have mercy. Anyway, I remember it, I remember all that, you know what I'm saying? It was
I did wear them on purpose.
It was crazy, and I was just like thinking to myself, like, this is amazing. So we get up, we drive over to Long Beach, right, LBC. And we go downtown and we go to PF Chang's. Went to PF Change, I ain't got no money, but, I had enough to get the date through, And I mean, I was really a college student and working, that's really what was happening. So what wound up happening, we went out to eat. We had an exceptional date. We had great conversation, just like the phone is carrying over. And I think to speak to when we talk about curating these relationships or whatever, I think, you have to deal with the energy, like that energy around conversation. If you're talking to somebody and there's just not that kind of that energy in the conversation, I think that might be a telltale sign. Like, right, you sitting at the table just quiet, like, I think that, and that didn't happen with us. Like we had something to talk about. We just kept going. And then that night, the date was over. I took her back home. We didn't kiss. Did we kiss?
Yeah, we didn't kiss the first date. Yeah, that was interesting. But we didn't kiss or anything. I mean, not that we should. I'm just saying, not that we should. I'm just saying,
I
you
thought that
know,
was normal.
right. But you know how you leave and you leave on high though. Like, can't wait to the next one. I wish that could have been long lived. I'm literally driving back home to Pasadena, 710 freeway. I get on 17. I'm gonna go to back road, and then all of a sudden I get to uh, almost probably 10 minutes from my house, and I mean I don't know what this happens. I've been drove in Los Angeles, South Central, Compton. I've been to LBC that night, the same night. Everything's good, but I told you I was going on a rough time, so my car didn't have registration. And so literally 10 minutes from the house, the police pulled me over. And in Cali, when they pull you over for dead registration, they don't be like, okay, here's a ticket, go to court. Nah, they take cars in Cali. They literally took my car that night.
Wow.
Took my car that night. I'm sitting on the side of the road. Ain't got no car to first. I'm calling brothers from the church. And I call her and tell her, I lost my car. I got pulled over by the police. And then I was like, I don't know if this is God saying, nah, this ain't it. You know what I'm saying? But it was crazy like that happened. And it was really my fault though. It's not her fault.
Totally. I was gonna say that was not God. That was you.
That was not God.
All your fault.
Yeah, that was okay.
So can y'all speak to the question in regards to your
The spiritual gap. Yes.
Mhm.
So I have never felt I never felt that, at least while we were dating. I never felt that because I knew I had a very healthy faith of my own. And I never thought I would be with a minister or preacher ever in life. I've never seeked to be with one. That just wasn't the thing I ever wanted. But at the same time, I grew up in a very, at least on my mom's side, a very spiritual family. Like my grandmother honestly could preach some preachers under the pulpit, but I mean that lady can really she can really go, but she would never admit to that. But I just had a great foundation of the word, and I won't say that, and this is something that I still kind of deal with. I won't say that I'm as well versed in the word. Of course, I know the word, but when I say well versed, like I can't quote stuff like that. Like my mind, it takes a lot of, and this is with school, with everything. It just takes a lot for me to hold things like that, and then to say it out again. But for me, like I know where my faith lies. I always knew where it lies. I know myself very well in that area, and so it never was a insecurity for me. I knew I could still carry conversation spiritually. Now, the professional student here, he does, he knows a lot more than I do. But it's more of a respect than it is of like, oh, you know so much more and I can't live up to that. It's not like that at all. And also because of who he is, even if I have questions, he was always open to talk about it. He never made me feel like, oh, you should know this. Like I've never felt that way. And so I always look at him being who he is and what he knows as something that added to me, not something that I should be up. And so yeah, I never felt a spiritual gap. It was like speaking to him being a preacher, like of course when I met him, I knew he was a preacher, right? But I didn't know he wanted to preach. Like, oh yeah, he preaches, he does this thing. But when he started talking about like, yeah, I want, have my own church and all this stuff, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know it was that serious. But at the same time, I didn't it was a surprise to me that he wanted it, that much. Like he wanted to be in a leadership position that much and to lead people because he has so much vision. I still to this day don't see it as something that's like I can't handle or that God hasn't really equipped me to handle. Like my grandmother has really, and I say my whole family, but my grandmother especially, like when I think about my life, she has really prepared me for this, which is crazy. She prepared me for something that I didn't even know was coming. And to this day, she still does. Yeah. And so literally like being a minister's wife, being a mother, being everything, she has done it all. And so I never felt unprepared. Even when it came to having our first child, which we'll probably get to that later, or if we got time, she even prepared me for that. Like, just no fear, no fear.
And Brittany's unique in so many ways. And I think even from the standpoint, because she had the upbringing by her grandmother, like just the way she's wired is probably even a little different today for what kind of women, kind of the mentality some women have, you know, or whatever the case may be. And I'm not saying that in no pun intended in that. I'm just saying it. I just noticed that she was just unique. She was just different. Almost when you talk about someone who God makes for you, designed them for you, I think about how patient she is with me. You know, I think about not only how patient she is with me just when I don't get it right, but how patient she is with me just to listen to me. Like, because I do feel like I'm always talking about something, right? Like I always got, you know, she'll tell me I'm always preaching, but you know, it's just, it's when it's in you, right? And I think from the beginning, I've always seen Brit as somebody, and I tell her this all the time still, that I feel comfortable sharing with her the ideals that I have in my head first, so she can kind of be the first, you know, sounding board, because I feel that she's very wise and very analytical, and she's able to give me like some pretty sound advice, you know. And so who better to be with than somebody who can like receive what you have to put out and can give you back sound information, wisdom. And that's kind of how it's been from the beginning. Even though in the beginning of our relationship, we had to grow together because a lot of things for us happen fast. And we'll get into that for a moment, but a lot of things happen fast. So we didn't get a chance to grow as rapidly as our relationship grew from the beginning when we were dating. And so there was this brief moment for us where we had to come to know each other. And I think that might be older couples who are up here could probably maybe even attest to that, the need to get to know one another inside of a covenant relationship. And but she's been truly a blessing for me.
And also, I don't want to discredit my mother either. I was raised by my mother, but my mother had me fairly young, and so my grandmothers, both of them, had a lot to do with my upbringing overall. And so when it comes to especially spirituality, I give a lot of credit to my grandmother because she was that person for me, and she still is. I think she's in here actually. So hey, grandma.
Oh wow, that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Okay, so guys, you mentioned a little bit about the transition from dating into marriage and things. Could you just tell us whatever you want to tell us about the transition of getting to know each other, of transitioning from the dating casually to the dating seriously to the marrying part?
So this is where the story gets woo. Okay, like it took a turn.
Took a turn. Yeah.
How do we?
So and I've been very transparent about this.
Yeah, we both
especially
have. We both
from
have.
the pulpit.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not a secret. So for Brit and I, we dated really fast. I mean, like when I say it went really slow, but when we got going, it went really fast.
I think I'll say this really quickly. I think us talking as much as we did kind of like jump started that, because when I say we talk, guys, like I would be on my way to school and I would talk to him up until the second I was walking in class, be like, okay, I gotta go, I'm about to start class real quick, right? And then as soon as I come out, he's either calling me or I'm calling him. Like he was falling asleep every night on the phone. Like it was like he was dropping the phone because he would fall asleep, or you know, or I would fall asleep. It was more me than him. And he'd be like, Brittany, you know, like or I would call his second phone. Remember that? And it was loud, so I knew it would wake him up. Like, so stuff like that. So we had a lot.
Yeah.
Leading up to that.
Yeah. And so what wound up happening was, of course, Brittany and I, we wind up getting pregnant.
Yes.
Is that the best way to say that?
Mm-hmm.
of course, and we were not married, of course. And here's this beautiful budding relationship that now it's on a very rocky road, because not only are we pregnant, she's this like, I tell people all the time, she was like the jewel of her grandmother, but also Southside. She was a daughter of Southside, Dr. Backus, and she was considered a jewel of that church. And there's so many in that community who knows what I'm talking about. And so here I have to deal with the fact that not only is she pregnant, but she's pregnant by another young man who's a preacher. And just before that happened, it was like I was preaching at all these different events, all these different functions. I had guys calling me like, yo, your man, your name is out there, you know, this or that, whatever. We want you to come do this. So like this hot speaker that's on the circuit right now. Not that I was all that. I'm just saying that's just what the vibe was. And then this happens. And now for me, it was a very difficult place to be and navigate, especially the fact that I was away from home. I don't have family in Los Angeles. I'm far from home. And all I have is my church family at that time, North Pasadena, and Brit, you know. And so we went through this turbulent moment, because now I'm trying to make a decision, not based upon what's happening, right? But then also dealing with this pressure. And that is, she's pregnant. I know we're together, but I don't want to make a decision just because she's pregnant. You know, I want to be able to do what's right, you know, and I know that I'm gonna be a dynamic father, right? But then to answer the question whether or not that means being a father with her, you know, and our child, or being a father and she's in my life, I'm in her life, but not necessarily as an official couple, whatever. I don't want to be forced into the decision, but I had a lot of people in my ear. A lot of people in my ear like, hey, you know, you got to make the right decision here. You got a lot to look forward to in your future. And so now I feel like people are like even commenting about the road for me to be a pastor or preacher. And it's like looking really sketchy. And I don't know what to do. And the pressure of it literally drove a wedge between us, more so by my doing, because I just didn't handle it right. And so for the 6 to 8 months, I tell people this, man, like I put her through a lot, because I was really trying to wrestle with this guy that's all by himself. And not that I'm putting it on me, like, I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but I just was acting silly, you know? And I'm acting silly. I'm distant. I'm there, but I'm not there. And what wound up happening was Brit was like a trooper. Like, regardless of what I did or how I was acting, she stayed consistent with me. Like she was always just warm. She was always nice. She never tried to disrespect me. She never got angry and yelled at me or nothing like that. She just was, even if stuff happened that was hurtful, she just was like, okay, he's doing this because of this. You know, I mean, I'm talking about, I had people, I'm not excusing it. I had people that I remember one time I walked up to somebody who was related to her, who was a minister in the city. And I walked up to him and we were all there. We had always talked. Matter of fact, he gave me a suit one time or two at his house. And literally I walked up to him, he saw me. This is the first time I'm seeing him now. And literally I went to shake his hand, and he completely just walked away. Didn't say nothing to me, you know? And there I am standing, and I'm like, man, I'm hurting, because like, this is what we're going through. And so all of that stuff contributed to like just this kind of downward spiral. And then what wound up happening was, because she was so consistent with me, like one day I was like the prodigal son, you know, I came to my senses and I realized the very thing that we had in the beginning. And I was like, yo, like this, she has been holding it down for me all this time. She's been consistent. And here I am, because of all this other pressure and static and noise, I'm just failing miserably. And it was at that moment that I was like, hey, pull yourself up, get your stuff together, do what you need to do. And not just because it's what people want you to do it because that's what you were going to do anyway.
And it was from that moment that she was still there. And I promise you, 8 months in, I step up to the plate like, yo, let's do this. I'm ready. Let's make it happen. And we haven't looked back since. We were married probably within the next 4 months, right after my son came, probably a month or two after he was born. And we've been rolling ever since. One of my mentors said to me, he said, man, life is what you make it. And sometimes you have to sometimes you have to move forward even when it's not your reality. Because at the end of the day, God's going to honor your faithfulness. And that's what I was determined to do. We were determined to be faithful to him. People can say what they want. People can deal with us in the way that they want. But at the end of the day, we're going to remain faithful to him. And if we do that, God's going to take care of everything else. And boy, has he. Mm-hmm. He's taking care of everything else. All we've had to do is be consistent with him.
Yeah. Wonderfully said, right? How do I follow that? Going back to when we did find out we were pregnant, and I will say leading up to that, no, I'll go back. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out my thoughts. We were full transparency. We were physical one time, guys. One time, and and that happened, right? And when I found out I was pregnant, I thought about him for sure, in the position that he has, how he's growing in the city and who he is. But at the same time, guys, when I tell you, I had no fear. Like I felt like, not that it was supposed to happen, because, God has his plan for us. But I also felt like we were okay. Like whatever this was going to turn out to be, it was going to be all right. And so it's not like we were, teenagers either. I was 24. It was 26. Wait, was I 20? Yeah, I had just turned 24, right? You were 26, or about to be 26.
26. I was about to be 27.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, that doesn't matter. Anyways, we weren't like kids, right? We were adults, young still, but I didn't feel like it was something that we couldn't handle, right? Whatever this outcome was going to be. I truly hope that it wouldn't affect our relationship, which it ended up doing, but that's like to be expected too, especially for what was going on in both of our lives. But I felt like I was shocked, but I wasn't scared. I knew that I could handle it, whatever came with it. And he actually knew before I did. How, I don't know. But he was like, I guess it was something you felt. And that could be a testament of, our closeness at the time. But I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no. But we were doing a cleanse together, actually. We were doing a master cleanse together. Do you remember that? And the whole time we were on this cleanse, I was so sick. And I didn't think those things at all. I was thinking, we're doing this thing together, and I wanted to stop it, but because we were doing it together, I was like, I gotta stick this out. I've never done a cleanse before. And right in the middle of the cleanse, when I decided to check, I was like, oh my God, I need to eat some food. So immediately I knew that I needed to take care of this thing that we created, but I knew that it was important to us, and he was still very important to me. And so I say all that to say that during that very difficult time leading up to us having Omri, our firstborn, the reason I stayed so consistent was because I knew the way he was acting wasn't him. And it's because we spent so much time getting to know each other. Well, it didn't seem like a lot of time, but it was a lot of time, because it was every day for hours and hours and hours. But I knew that he was acting outside of himself. And so as much as I understood that, I mean, it was hurtful, some of the things that happened between us, but I knew that at some point he's going to be himself again. And so I don't want to hurt this relationship by saying things, doing certain things that we can't, or that I can't take back. And so So I knew at some point, you know, he was going to come to himself, like he said. But when I say it was difficult though, because I'm still human, right? And I still have feelings. So it did get to a point though where we ended up breaking up, or he broke up with me. He broke up with me, and he was, I mean, and at this point too, he was really going through like the thick of the pressure, and I'm sure some depression and all those kinds of things. And so we broke up for a few weeks, and I didn't see him for like a few months. And I think at that point was when like the hormones and my feelings had gotten to this point where I cried for 2 weeks straight, guys. When I say 2 weeks, like I've never cried so much in my life. I cried so much. And I don't know if it was, I don't know. It could, I don't know. It was a mixture of a lot of things. So much so that it hurt. Like it was physically painful. And it made me even scared to be carrying a baby and to be hurting like that on the inside, which to this day, I feel like that's why my son is so emotional. But that goes to another thing, right? So yeah, we broke up. Very hard time. It was literally during Christmas time, which is already a time where you want to be close to someone, right? And I remember sitting in my grandmother's little, what would you call that little area? Little room. The third level. It's like kind of underground almost. You know, celebrating New Year's by myself. And he was here with his family. And all I wanted was for him to be there with me. And so I remember though on that day, Christmas Eve, I stopped crying. And I told myself, I said, this is what life is right now. We are going to move forward. You know, I prayed about it. I said, we're going to move forward because our faith should not be shaken by this. God has got me. We're in this situation, but he's got me. And no matter what, if I have to live my life as a single parent, like I'm going to live in faith doing that. And no matter what, I'm still going to be connected to this guy. And so it's going to be what it's going to be. It's not going to change who I am or the success of my life. And it seems like when I came to that come to Jesus moment, it was like, I didn't even care anymore about how I was feeling. It was like, look, we're on a mission now. We got to raise this baby who's going to be here in a few weeks. And just so happened, baby shower's coming up. He came back in town. No one knew we were broken up. No one knew that the day of our baby shower, not only were we broken up, but I hadn't seen him in 2 months since that day. And we went through that baby shower. Nobody ever questioned.
I was looking rough too.
Oh, he was looking rough, y'all. He was bushy. He was. Oh, but I wasn't looking the great.
Listen, and her family didn't know anything.
No.
I mean, they know now if grandma's up here. They didn't know anything. Like, she never told anyone anything about me, anything about our situation, which made it. I mean, I don't know if I mean, her family's so awesome. I don't know if it would have made it easy for them to love me and accept me. But when I tell you she didn't tell them anything, she didn't tell me anything. So when I went and saw her at the church, Chris Turner, y'all, had come out for a Singorama. And you know, he's pop, and so, you know, he didn't beat up on me. You know, he said, you know, I stayed with him in his room the whole weekend, and she came in and saw me in there, and he let her come. She came in and just chilled for a little bit, and we just in there talking. But what wound up happening for me? Can y'all hear us? Okay. What wound up happening for me during that moment? I just was in this place where I just remember, I used to go to Chris' house when I grew up. And whenever I would get in a situation, I'd go to his house and I just kind of just be in this place where I'd be soaking. And I was in a place where I was really down. I was really depressed. And here she is still coming to check on me. And Chris, I don't know what Chris said to me. I don't know if he said anything. Actually, I think that was the first time he didn't say nothing. First time, you know, he tried to pull out his belt, he tried to do that, he didn't say nothing. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And then that Sunday, I'm sitting over on the other side of the congregation. I'm sitting by myself. Her aunt sees me and her aunt's like, man, go sit with him. He's looking so sad. But when I saw her come in, here this girl comes in, I done put her through all this crazy stuff. And she comes in looking like a goddess. Skin glowing, she pregnant, about to have a baby. And I'm like, I'm horrible. I'm the worst guy in the world. And I'm just looking at her and I'm thinking to myself, how could I do that? And it's at that moment, at that church, that moment, that I looked at Pop, and everybody trying to talk to him before he go to the airport. And literally I had a moment where I sat right there and I cried with him in the foyer. And I just cried. I couldn't say nothing, I just cried. And I looked at him and I said, man, I'm good. We're gonna be good. That same night, I walked over to her and I said, can I come with you all? And her aunt was like, yeah, sure. And they treated me so great. And it was at that moment that I was just like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, at the end of the day, I knew it. And because she had not shared what we had gone through as a couple, because she hadn't told all that mess that I put her through, it just made it so much easier for us to just pick up where we left off back in April, and I knew it then, like, ride or die, right here. That's what you want by your side, and even to this day, when I know I don't do right and I don't get it always right, at the end of the day, she holds me down. And because of that, I'm loyal to her. I love her, yeah, anyway.
Aww. He hates that. That's why I do that. He hates it. He don't like mushiness, but I'm so mushy. But yeah, that is the story, the initial story. We took an hour to tell the story.
Yeah, we did. Lord.
Y'all, that is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I did want to say one thing about I don't know if, did someone say about knowing the one or something like that? Maybe it just came up, but I think it's really important to address, like, knowing what the one is, because, like, in our situation, it got to be super, not the ideal situation. I knew that Orlando was somebody that I'd see myself with, like, for a very long time. But and for some people do know it's the one, I guess it depends on their relationship. Some people know it's the one. For me, I knew Orlando was just that person for me it was easy. Everything was easy. Conversation, I mean, you have the nerves, of course, but those are the good nerves, right? I had those things, but, like, talking, doing things together, like, it was easy. I always felt protected, like he's naturally that kind of guy. I won't say I knew he was the one until but I can't even say it was a time, really. We just came to grow to that point. And so I really don't want people to think that you're just gonna have this moment where it's like, aha. That's not for everybody, because that's not what happened for us. And even still, guys, even when we did get married, it was still rough. We had a rough time, like a year or two after we got married. It was rough, y'all.
Yeah, we had a rough year. Like,
yeah, it was tough.
And you got to think about, we get to know each other, and then all of a sudden this happens, and I put her through this crazy stuff. And so then when we finally come back together, we had a little time before we actually made it official. And then once we made it official, we had to get to know each other. Humble beginnings. We cleaned the dental offices. She's not working. I'm working 2 jobs, cleaning the dental office to stay with her grandmother. It was a really humbling experience as well, to stay with somebody else and then they tell you what you need to do. It was rough. And so that really worked on us as well. So when Miami came up at me and they were like, hey, Miami was like, yo, you coming? It's like, yo, we got to go. We got to go. And so we went to Miami, and that was the best decision we could have ever made.
Miami forced us to really grow together, as a family, even grow as a family, because that's where we had, the other 2. And we each, it was a neutral place. We each were in a place where we had no family. None of my family was there, none of his family was there. Now, he did have some relationships there as far as with the church already, But when it comes to like blood, like the people who you know are going to be there for you, like we had no one, so we had to depend on one another.
Each other, yeah.
And so it was, when I tell you God orchestrated that like perfectly, like we needed that time to grow separate and apart from our families, no influences, nothing like that. And also to grow close to the church and depend on them, because they were there for us. They still are there for us to this day. We have very close relationships with people in the members in Miami. And so yeah, that transition is a whole nother story in itself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, well, this has been so rich. Can we do a part 2 sometime?
Yeah, for sure. Because we have a whole lot more to share.
Yes. And I don't want to keep you all day. I really want to ask the questions and go for another 2 hours, really, but I know that that's not realistic. So this is the first time where we have had people calling for, we need a part 2, we need a part 2. So we just need to, can we get a part 2 from you all? Because this has been so rich.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yes, you
okay. Well, we're gonna organize that. So right now, you all, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording and let